hottest segment in the Indian car market is undoubtedly the compact SUV. Renault recently updated its Duster and added an AMT to the facelift. And Hyundai launched the Creta last year. Mahindra's Scorpio is another popular offering. But really, it is the Creta that the newly launched Honda BR-V must take on. Like the Creta, the BR-V is available in petrol and diesel and has an automatic option, though just in the petrol. The Creta now offers auto with both engine types. At first glance, the Creta looks more like the SUV, while the BR-V looks bigger.
The BR-V's face reminds you a little bit of the CR-V, and which is a smart thing from Honda. I mean, it's got that typical Honda look in front, looks SUV-ish. But then when you take a look at the Creta, really, it's no contest. The Creta is definitely the prettier looking car. It's got all the elements that work. People love the way it looks. And then overall, when it comes to the styling of both these cars, I mean, look at this. It looks like an SUV. It's got the right stance. It's got the right height. It's got the right proportions. This car, we've been saying this before too, and clearly it loses out in terms of not having that right SUV stance. It's not SUV enough because it looks stretched, it looks like a van, and there's nothing you can do to take that away from it. So which is why in the looks department, it's sort of an obvious winner, isn't it, the Creta? Now, this particular car is the top end, so is the BR-V, but I have to quickly add here a little disclaimer. There's a whole lot of blingy chrome that's, well, it's add-on. It's all sorts of optional stuff you can get done at the dealer. So that isn't standard equipment, but even so, I think the Creta does definitely look a lot better.
It is inside the cabin where things start looking up for the BR-V too. Because it has a clear USP the others in the compact space don't have: space.
Now that long stretched shape on the outside, well, it turns into a bit of a USP on the inside, and this is literally what Honda will have in its arsenal to really play up when it comes to the BR-V and its USPs. Lots of cabin space. The second row, very generous in terms of space, lots of legroom, and then the third row, which remember, not many cars in this space have. Fairly comfortable, I have to say. The legroom's not bad, maybe not for very tall people, but it does the job. And when you don't need it, well, you simply need to fold it away and it props up here behind this second row, and it gives you tons of cargo space, which is why Honda is making the 7-seat configuration standard on the BR-V. There is no 5-seat version because, well, it can go from 5 to 7 seats whenever you want. The top spec of the BR-V gives you keyless entry and the start-stop button. Well, so does the Creta, and the advantage on the Creta is that you also get this touchscreen navigation system on the top end, something the BR-V doesn't have. The seating position and the ride height that you feel in the Creta is also something that's lacking on the BR-V, though you can raise the seat up somewhat and mimic some of that SUV position.
So the Creta is better spec'd, though the BR-V is big on space. On the petrol side of things, the BR-V has the refined iVTEC motor and the fuel-efficient CVT option.
Now, you knew all along when Honda decides to put a CVT instead of an automatic with the 1.5 iVTEC engine, it's not going to be electric, it's not going to be a fire starter, but it does perform well enough in that range that you expect from a CVT. It becomes extremely pleasant and fun to drive in city traffic conditions because everything just becomes more convenient. And that's really the clincher. You've seen that with a lot of Honda vehicles of late. The CVT option has started to become more and more popular. And compare it to a Creta where the automatic gearbox is a little cruder, not as refined. Compare it to a Duster where obviously the AMT is never going to be as smooth. And yes, then the CVT starts to look a lot more attractive as well.
The Creta's petrol engine is reasonably powerful, and like I said earlier, now at least offers the auto gearbox option, though only on the top end SX trim. The more popular Creta is the Diesel NE though, and here there has been an auto option from the start, but the manual is the more fun drive.
The 6-speed gearbox on this car has been married really well to this unit, but the engine itself is a little bit crude. It's got a lot of grunt and almost too much, in the sense that it comes across as very unrefined, and I think that's the big distinct difference in character between the drivetrain on this car versus the one on the BR-V.
Yes, the diesel ID tech on the Honda is definitely the more fun motor, but it's very noisy.
It's a noisy engine, and that's a problem because NVH levels could have been a lot better, even though Honda says it's really worked on that on the BRV. The other thing about this engine that instantly stands out is that there is a slightly different character to how this engine has performed on other Honda models that we've seen it on. It has a nice driving range, and there's a good amount of low and mid-range torque, which gives you a lot of flexibility in city traffic especially, and interestingly, a nice highway cruising character too. So it feels good when you're driving it on the highway. In fact, even the noise levels kind of settle down to a good hum when you're on the highway. But on the whole, the diesel is certainly the one that I think that people are going to be attracted to, because there's also no sense of lag from this car.
So now the only thing left to look at are the prices. The Creta starts at 9,16,000 rupees and tops off at 12,86,000 rupees for the petrol. On the BRV, that's 8,75,000 and 11,99,000 rupees. On the diesel side, the Creta goes from 9,99,000 to 14,50,000 rupees, and the BRV has its variants start at 9,90,000 rupees, and the priciest VX variant is for 12,90,000 rupees ex-showroom Delhi.
So it's a very different setting I'm suddenly in, and that's because we've transported ourselves to the launch event of the BRV, because the one thing we really just still needed to know, the prices. That's what makes all the difference really in an Indian context more so, because how does the vehicle get positioned? Now, in the context of our shootout as well, that becomes really important. Every segment Honda has gone into, it's always been the premium player in terms of pricing. It never undercuts the competition, but with the BRV, it's done that for the first time. So Honda wants to be aggressive with this car, which is encouraging, and which also means that the, I guess, variant for variant comparison finds the BRV being a little bit cheaper than the Creta. The base petrol variant, by the way, is 40,000 rupees cheaper than the entry petrol Creta. So that changes things a little bit and makes the race a little bit tighter. But having said that, given the immense popularity of the Creta, given the fact that it addresses a certain need, its styling and its feature list still keeps it just ahead. So it's a much tighter race now, as I said, but the Creta still wins this one. After a stellar couple of years for Honda car in India, the last few months there's been a lot of pressure on the company in terms of its performance, and there's been lots of questions in terms of the future product portfolio. Well, the first answer to a lot of those questions is coming in now in the form of the new BRV. It's a vehicle that was shown at the Auto Expo and has now made its market debut, with prices as well being announced right here today. And to speak about the BRV and also what it means for the overall Honda car strategy, we have the new boss at Honda Car India, Mr. Yoichiro Ueno, joining us. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much. You are welcome.
Welcome to India, and thank you for giving us your time today as well.
It's my pleasure. I'm very excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to work for Indian market.
No, I'm glad, and the thing is that, as I mentioned just now, that you're the new man at the helm. It's literally just been about a month that you've been here, and we've already got a very significant model coming in. So first off, let me ask you about the BRV. The anticipation was there from the Auto Expo. We saw the car there, but now that it's finally here, how important a model is it for you?
Yes, BRV is a very successful model. In some countries we have launched, and this is the first car for us to enter the compact SUV models. So we are expecting that this model can capture quite broad range of the customers, and also this car has unique characters with SUV and high utilities. So I think these customers can capture not only from the same segment, but from the various segments. So we are expecting quite a lot to this new model.
Which of course then leads me to ask you, in terms of volume, what sort of volume would you be looking for from specifically this car?
This is the very first model for this segment, so it's a bit difficult for us to estimate the exact numbers. But so far we are receiving quite a good pre-bookings, and we hope that this car can be one big pillar for our sales volume.
The segment itself, of course, has been growing rapidly the last few quarters. We've seen that not just from one particular player, but we've seen a lot of new models coming into this space. Take us back into the development cycle. At what point did Honda decide that it has to be a vehicle which is around this size and not the sub 4-meter SUV? Because we've seen those coming in as well.
One important character is this car has 7 seaters. So of course there is a limitation of 4 meters, but we decided to provide more utilities of the cabin space and also seating capacities. But then finally it exceeded 4 meters, but I think there is a strong demand for this sort of high utility vehicles.